just before introducing the rest of our panel, a very short quote from Timothy Snyder in an article he wrote, which Ukraine has no future without Europe, but Europe also has no future without Ukraine. I think what Yevhen has said is that there is a conflict, of course, that is going on in Ukraine that is much bigger than Ukraine, and in fact, it is also a conflict, a crisis of identity for Europe that's playing out there.
So the war is going on, right? So it is a war. And this war is not only about Ukraine, it's of course about Europe. To some extent, I would even say that it is an anti-European war. So that's why it's very important not to keep distance, but really go deep in details. And like one of the first maybe tasks for the Western audience, for the EU audience, is really not to keep distance, but really to understand. This war has a pretty clear counter-revolutionary nature. That what Maidan was actually, it was the constitution of politics. It was like the new start of politics, the start of new ways of making politics. It showed clearly that only in the public sphere, only on squares, only on Maidans of all sorts, you can become a political subject. That is the way, Maidan is the way how society can become a collective political subject, how a human being becomes a political animal. And the war was launched to oppose that, to prevent that.
From the Russian point of view, and this is very much connected in a strange way to Mr. Putin's background, is that when a policeman sees 10,000 people on the street, the question is never why, the question is who. Who is sending them? Who is paying them? Who is organizing them? So from this point of view, the very understanding of spontaneous protest does not exist. By the way, we can agree or disagree, but when Mr. Putin said that he believes that the American embassy organized the protests in Russia, he believes it. What we see is much more form of a very aggressive isolationism and basically an attempt on the Russian side to change the nature of its borders with Europe.
If you want to describe the values of Ukrainians in one word, this is insecurity. And that means that because Ukrainians feel very insecure, the institutions that they form are institutions based on zero-sum game concept. And it's very difficult to move from zero-sum game into positive-sum game if you are insecure. And these are the things that we usually don't consider. We take security for granted. The rules of the game are being challenged as we speak right now, and whether they will stay or whether they will change is being decided quite far from here, but it will affect everyone living here very significantly one way or the other.
Couple of months ago we've been making an interview with guys from German newspaper, as they've been asking us whether you've been serving for Ukrainian community in Donetsk or you've been working with the Russian community in Donetsk. And obviously there is no such thing as a Ukrainian community in Donetsk or Russian community in Donetsk, just one community which was living in this region without any division of being Russian, Ukrainian, division on language they used and anything like that.
For the rest of the time, I would really like to turn to you and ask if there are particular questions that you have of individuals on the panel or a perspective that you'd like to bring forward.
I would like to ask you, Yevhen, first, how would you assess the policy of the EU and the US, or the Ukraine policy of these two entities, yeah? Is it leading somewhere? Are we hitting the wall? Are we too soft on Russia? Are we too hard? Should we send them weapons or not?
The basic problem, at least how I see it, looks like this. It's not easy. I do believe Mrs. Merkel is right that arming Ukrainians is not the solution. When you start arming, there are two problems. Be sure that people who you're armed are going to win. This is not so easy, because I agree that they're not fighting just separatist groups. These separatist groups can basically easily be rearmed, and some of the Russian regulars have been coming in a difficult moment like in the August. So from this point of view, you can end up with the escalation, which you don't know where it will go.
What Ukrainians experienced during the revolution, it was possible and really efficient and successful, but it was on the state level. Now we came to the more broader, to the international level. And now it's the European task, the task of the Europe, because the EU now at the crossroads. Both phenomena, be it revolution or war, are pretty traditional for the European identity, for the European history. Basically, both of them were somehow the basis on which Europe was created. So now Europe is challenged and should be reformulated. So now it's for the EU to choose. Either it will be reformulated and restructured because of the revolution or because of the war. Now it's your turn. The ball is on your side. Thank you.
Well, yeah, exactly.